Rain hammered my windshield like it had a personal vendetta, each drop a tiny fist pounding the glass. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, as the wipers fought a losing battle against the Seattle deluge. It was 11:47 p.m., and I was bone-tired. The kind of tired that seeps into your soul after a 12-hour shift at the community center, followed by a late-night stint slinging drinks at the Rusty Anchor. My eyes burned, my feet throbbed, and my stomach growled like a caged animal. I just wanted to get home, peel off my soaked clothes, and collapse. But home was a lie I kept telling myself. A place that looked like warmth, but felt like a freezer. The brakes squealed as I rounded a curve on I-5, the tires skidding on the slick asphalt. I pumped the pedal, but it sank to the floor, useless. My heart slammed into my throat. Headlights flared in the distance. A semi-truck, barreling toward me like a freight train. I yanked the wheel hard, the car fishtailing as I swerved into the next lane. The truck's horn blared, a guttural roar that drowned out my scream. My sedan spun, tires screaming, and for one endless second, I saw my life flash. Not the highlight reel, but the quiet, lonely moments. Eating cold leftovers alone, my sister's laughter echoing from a room I wasn't invited to, my parents' eyes sliding past me like I was a ghost. The car lurched to a stop on the shoulder, half in a ditch. The truck roared past, its wake rocking my beat-up Civic. I sat there, hands trembling, breath hitching, the rain still pounding like it wanted to bury me. My brakes had been failing for weeks, but when I'd asked Dad for help with repairs, he'd waved me off. Ava's retreat is this weekend, Emily. It's a big expense. You're practical, you'll figure it out. Practical. That was my role in the Harper family, the one who figured things out, who didn't need coddling, who didn't matter enough to save. I drove the last 10 minutes at a crawl, the car shuddering, my pulse still jackhammering. The Harper mansion loomed ahead, all glass and steel, glowing like a beacon in the storm. To anyone else, it screamed money, tech mogul money, the kind that bought my dad, Richard Harper, a Forbes cover, and my mom, Clara, a socialite's crown. To me, it was a cage, polished and cold, where I was the invisible tenant. I parked in the driveway, my car a dented eyesore next to Dad's Tesla and Mom's Range Rover. The rain soaked me as I trudged to the door, my sneakers squelching. Inside, the house was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels staged, like it's waiting to betray you. I dropped my bag in the foyer, the thud echoing off marble floors. My clothes clung to me, dripping onto the hardwood, and I didn't bother wiping it up. No one would notice, just like no one noticed me. The kitchen was my first stop, driven by a faint hope that there'd be something warm waiting, something that said, "We thought of you, Emily." I should have known better. On the counter sat a single styrofoam container, a post-it note slapped on top in Mom's hurried scrawl. "Eat this. Ava's dinner was catered." I lifted the lid. A cold burger, bun soggy, lettuce wilted, stared back at me. The fries were limp, grease congealing like wax. I laughed, a bitter sound that scraped my throat. Ava's dinner was catered. Of course it was. My sister, Ava Harper, 20 years old and Seattle's golden influencer, didn't eat cold takeout. She got lobster tails and champagne flutes, probably served on a yacht while her Instagram racked up 100,000 likes. I tossed the container in the microwave, not because I wanted it, but because I was too hungry to care. While it hummed, I leaned against the counter, my eyes catching the gleam of 2 wine glasses drying by the sink. They were new, crystal, probably from Mom's latest girls' night with her charity gala friends. Next to them, a stack of plates, rinsed and pristine, ones I'd never seen before. The air carried a faint whiff of rosemary and garlic, the ghost of a meal I hadn't been invited to. My stomach twisted, not just from hunger but from a deeper ache, one I'd carried so long it felt like part of my skeleton. Voices drifted from the living room, soft but sharp, like a blade wrapped in silk. I edged closer, my wet sneakers silent on the floor. Mom and Dad were on a video call, their faces lit by the glow of a tablet. Ava's voice, bright and bubbly, spilled from the speakers. "You should have seen the spa, Mom. 10 grand well spent. I feel like a new person." I froze, my breath catching. 10 grand. My car had been repossessed last month because I couldn't pay the $2,000 0 cents loan, and when I'd asked for help, Mom had sighed. "We're stretched thin, Emily. Ava's brand needs investment." Her brand. Ava's Instagram, her self-care retreats, her life. That was the investment. Me, I was the afterthought, the one who got a cold burger and a pat on the head. Mom's laugh rang out, high and proud. "My baby deserves the best. That post from the yacht? 100,000 likes already." Dad chuckled, his deep voice warm. "That's our girl. Keep shining, Ava." I waited, stupidly, for them to mention me, my promotion at the community center, the one I'd texted them about last week. Nothing. Not a word. I was a shadow in their spotlight, and Ava was the sun. I turned away, my chest tight, and headed to my room. It was tucked in the back of the house, small and plain, a guest room they'd grudgingly given me when I moved back after college. Ava's room down the hall was a shrine, pink velvet headboard, fairy lights, a walk-in closet stuffed with designer clothes. Mine had a twin bed, a cracked lamp, and a desk piled with bills I couldn't pay. I sat on the edge of the mattress, still in my wet clothes, and noticed something sticking out from under the bed. An old journal, leather-bound, one I hadn't touched since high school. I flipped it open, the pages yellowed, and a single line caught my eye, written in my teenage scrawl. "Why do they act like I'm not theirs?" My breath hitched. I'd forgotten that question, but it burned now. A spark of something dangerous. Curiosity, maybe, or the first crack in the dam I'd built to keep their neglect from drowning me. The microwave dinged downstairs, but I didn't move. Instead, I thought back to when I was 16, standing in Dad's office, my voice shaking as I begged for college funds. "Ava's dance career comes first," he'd said, not even looking up from his laptop. "You're practical, Emily. You'll figure it out." I did. I worked 2 jobs, took out loans, and clawed my way through community college. She got private lessons, a new car for her 17th birthday, and a trust fund I wasn't supposed to know about. I'd overheard Dad on the phone last week, talking to his lawyer about the trust. His voice low, "Just Ava's name, no changes." No changes. No Emily. I forced myself back to the kitchen, the burger now lukewarm and tasting like cardboard. I ate standing up, the house too quiet, the rain too loud. I was rinsing my plate when headlights flashed through the window. Ava's friends, probably, dropping by to raid the fridge like they always did. Sure enough, the door swung open and 3 of them stumbled in giggling, reeking of vodka and perfume. "Emily, hey," unslurred, barely glancing at me as they yanked open the fridge. "Ava said we could grab whatever." They took the last of the chicken I'd cooked for myself, the yogurt I'd bought with my tips, even the half-eaten pie I'd been saving. "Thanks?" They chirped, leaving the kitchen a mess as they vanished upstairs. I stood there, the empty fridge door swinging, and grabbed a box of stale crackers from the pantry. I ate them dry, each crunch louder than the last, my eyes burning with tears I refused to let fall. I wasn't crying over crackers. I was crying over the hole in my chest, the one that grew every time they chose Ava, every time they forgot me. I'd spent 24 years being the responsible one, the easy one, the one who didn't make waves, and for what? To be erased. The next night, I walked home from the bar, the rain lighter but still relentless. My car was in the shop again, and I couldn't afford an Uber. The streets were dark, the kind of dark that makes every shadow feel alive. I heard footsteps behind me, too close, too deliberate. I picked up my pace, my pulse spiking. but they kept coming. 2 guys, hoods up, materialized from an alley. "Hey, sweetheart," one called, his voice oily. "Got a light?" I ignored them, my hands slipping into my pocket for the pepper spray I always carried. They laughed, closing the gap. "Don't be like that." I spun around, heart hammering. "Back off," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The taller one smirked, pulling a knife that glinted under the streetlight. "Just give us your bag." "I didn't think—" I swung my backpack at his face, catching him off guard. He stumbled, cursing, and I ran, my sneakers pounding the pavement. The knife grazed my arm as I twisted away, a sharp sting that barely registered over the adrenaline. I didn't stop until I reached a gas station, its fluorescent lights a lifeline. The clerk let me wait inside until I was sure they were gone. My arm bled through my sleeve, but I didn't call anyone. Who would I call? Mom? Dad? They'd be too busy liking Ava's latest post. The next morning, I confronted Mom in the kitchen, my arm bandaged, my patience gone. "Why is it always Ava?" I demanded, my voice raw. "Why do you give her everything and leave me with nothing?" She didn't look up from her coffee. "You're jealous of Ava's light," she snapped. "Stop being so selfish." The word hit like a slap. I'd spent my life cleaning up their messes, covering for Ava, working myself to death so they could play perfect family. And I was the selfish one. That night was Ava's 21st birthday party, a spectacle that could have funded a small country. The mansion was transformed, fairy lights, a live band, a catering spread with crab legs and truffle risotto. I wasn't invited, not really, but Mom had texted me, "Help with cleanup after." I showed up anyway, in my work clothes, hoping for a scrap of acknowledgement. Guests toasted Ava, her gold dress shimmering as she posed for photos. I stood in the corner, invisible, until a caterer mistook me for staff and handed me a tray of dirty plates. "Take these to the kitchen," he said. I did, because what else was I supposed to do? The final straw came when Mom pulled me aside, her perfume sharp. "Emily, don't make a scene. Ava's night is important." Important. I was the one who'd organized the community center's fundraiser last month, saving it from closure. I was the one who'd gotten a promotion, who'd stayed up nights studying for exams I paid for myself. But Ava's night was important. I stormed out, the rain swallowing my footsteps, my heart a furnace of rage and hurt. I sought shelter in a bus stop, the plastic roof leaking. A man was there, disheveled, muttering to himself. I ignored him, but he lurched toward me, his eyes wild. "You got money?" he slurred, his breath sour. I backed away, hands up. "I don't have anything." He grabbed my arm, his grip bruising, and for a second I thought he'd hit me. I talked him down, my voice calm despite the panic clawing my chest. "It's okay, man, just sit down." He did, mumbling, but I was shaking, the city feeling like a trap I'd never escape. Back in my room, I found a childhood photo in a drawer, torn and crumpled, my 5-year-old face smiling next to Ava's. Hers were framed in gold downstairs. Mine was trash. I sat on my bed, the journal open, that question, why do they act like I'm not theirs? Burning brighter. My boss had called earlier, threatening to fire me unless I worked unpaid overtime. The community center was bleeding funds, and I was the one expected to fix it. As always, I couldn't afford to lose that job, not with rent due and my savings at zero. I pulled a duffel bag from under my bed, one I'd packed months ago but never used. My hands moved on their own, stuffing in clothes, a toothbrush, the journal. I scrawled a note on a scrap of paper. "I am done being invisible." I left it on the kitchen counter, next to the cold burger container, and walked out into the rain. The mansion's lights faded behind me, and for the first time I felt something like freedom, sharp and terrifying. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I wasn't coming back. The rain didn't let up as I walked away from the Harper mansion. My duffel bag slung over one shoulder, its straps digging into my skin. Seattle's streets glistened under streetlights, slick and unforgiving, like they were daring me to slip. My sneakers were soaked through, each step a squelch that echoed in the quiet night. I didn't look back. The mansion's glow faded behind me, swallowed by the storm, and with it went the last shred of hope I'd been clinging to, a hope that my parents might one day see me, really see me, for more than the reliable shadow I'd become. That hope was dead now, and I was the one carrying its corpse. Did plan, not really. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably my boss, Karen, reminding me about the unpaid overtime she'd demanded at the community center. "We're counting on you, Emily," she'd said, her voice clipped as if my exhaustion was a personal failing. I ignored it. The world felt too big and too small all at once, like I was standing on the edge of a cliff with nowhere to jump. My arm still stung from the mugging 2 nights ago, the bandage damp under my sleeve, a reminder of how close I'd come to losing more than my wallet. I kept walking, the city's pulse thrumming around me, car horns, distant sirens, the low hum of a bar spilling onto the sidewalk. I was free, but freedom tasted like fear. Lila's apartment was my only lifeline. She'd been my friend since high school, the one person who never bought into the Harper family myth. Her place was in Capitol Hill, a 40-minute walk on a good day, but tonight, with the rain and my bag weighing me down, it felt like a pilgrimage. I thought about calling her, but my pride, or maybe my shame, stopped me. I didn't want to be a burden, not yet. I'd already lost too much to admit I was drowning. Halfway there, I ducked into a 24-hour diner to escape the rain. The neon sign buzzed, open, its red glow flickering like a warning. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and greasy fries, and a jukebox played some old Springsteen song about running and never looking back. I slid into a booth, my bag thudding onto the cracked vinyl seat. The waitress, a woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Barb, didn't bother with pleasantries. "What'll it be?" she asked, pen poised over a notepad. "Just coffee," I said, my voice hoarse. I had $12.00 in my wallet, and I needed to make it last. She nodded, pouring a mug that looked more like motor oil than coffee. I wrapped my hands around it, the warmth seeping into my palms, and stared at the black surface, trying to see something in it. Answers, maybe, or just a reflection that didn't look so broken. The diner was mostly empty, just a trucker at the counter and a guy in a hoodie hunched over a laptop in the corner. I noticed him glancing my way, his eyes lingering too long. My stomach tightened, the memory of the mugger's knife flashing in my mind. I shifted, keeping my bag close, my pepper spray within reach. He looked away, but the unease stayed, a knot in my chest that wouldn't loosen. Seattle wasn't safe at night, not for someone like me, alone, broke, and too stubborn to ask for help. I sipped the coffee, bitter and scalding, and let my mind wander. Lila's apartment wasn't much, a 1-bedroom with mismatched furniture and a fridge that always smelled faintly of curry, but it was warm, alive, the opposite of the mansion's sterile perfection. She'd offered me a place to crash before, back when my car got repossessed and I was sleeping on a co-worker's couch. "You're not a stray, Em," she'd said, her paramedic's no-nonsense tone cutting through my excuses. "Your family." I hadn't believed her then, but I needed to now. The jukebox switched to a slow, mournful tune, and I thought about Ava. Her 21st birthday party was probably still raging, the mansion packed with influencers and trust fund kids toasting her glow. I could see her in my mind, gold dress catching the light, her laugh bright and practiced, her Instagram stories racking up views. She'd posted from Paris last month, a trip Mom paid for, captioned with hashtags like "chasing dreams" and blah. I'd scrolled past it at the bar, my hands shaking as I poured cheap whiskey for frat boys. I'd never left Washington, never had a passport, never been blessed with anything but bills and silence. My phone buzzed again, a text from Ava, of all people. "Where you at? Mom's pissed you left." I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the screen. pissed. Not worried, not sorry, just pissed. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened Instagram, a masochistic urge pulling me to Ava's profile. Her latest post was a selfie from the party, her smile perfect, the caption reading, "Living my truth, golden year." The comments were a flood of heart eyes emojis and "Slay queen." I closed the app, my throat tight. Living her truth. Mine was eating stale crackers in a kitchen that wasn't mine, washing dishes I didn't use, existing in a family that didn't want me. Barb refilled my coffee without asking, her eyes softening for a split second. "Rough night?" she said, more statement than question. "You could say that," I muttered, forcing a smile. She nodded, like she'd seen 100 girls like me, running from something they couldn't name. I wanted to tell her everything about the cold burger, the torn photo, the journal that hinted at a secret I didn't understand, but I didn't. I just drank my coffee and watched the rain streak the diner's windows. I left a $1 tip, all I could spare, and stepped back into the storm. The walk to Lila's was brutal, the wind slicing through my jacket, my bag heavier with every block. By the time I reached her building, a squat brick complex with a flickering entry light, I was shivering, my teeth chattering. I buzzed her apartment, praying she was home. The intercom crackled, and Lila's voice came through, groggy but warm. "Ben? That you?" "Yeah," I said, my voice breaking. Can I come up?" "Get your ass in here," she said, and the door buzzed open. Lila's apartment was on the 3rd floor, the stairwell smelling of mildew and weed. I dragged myself up, my legs leaden, and when she opened the door, I nearly collapsed. She was in sweatpants and a Seahawks hoodie, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, her paramedic's eyes scanning me like I was a patient. "Jesus, you look like a drowned rat," she said, pulling me inside. The apartment was a mess. Blankets on the couch, dishes in the sink, a half-dead plant by the window, but it felt like a hug. I dropped my bag, and Lila handed me a towel, her brow furrowing. What happened? I didn't know where to start. The brakes failing, the mugging, Ava's party, the note I'd left. It all tangled in my throat. "I left," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm done." She didn't ask for details, just nodded, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "Good." "You're too good for that shit show." She grabbed a beer from the fridge and cracked it open, offering me one. I shook my head, too tired to drink, too raw to numb myself. Lila sat on the couch, patting the spot next to her. "Talk when you're ready. Or don't. You're staying here, either way." I sank onto the couch, the towel draped over my shoulders, and for the first time in hours, I breathed. Lila's apartment was chaos, but it was hers, earned through 80-hour weeks saving lives. My room at the mansion was a museum exhibit, preserved but unloved. Here, I could be messy, human, real. We sat in silence for a while, the rain tapping the windows, the radiator hissing. Then Lila spoke, her voice low. "You know, I heard something about your folks. Rumor at the hospital. Some tech deal your dad's company made back in the day. Shady as hell. Might explain why they're so weird about you." She shrugged, like it was just gossip, but the words landed like a stone in my gut. The journal's question, "Why do they act like I'm not theirs?" flashed in my mind, sharper now, edged with possibility. "Like what?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Dunno. Something about buying out a competitor, maybe screwing over some whistleblower. Old news, but people still talk." She took a swig of her beer, watching me. "You ever dig into that?" I hadn't. I'd been too busy surviving, too scared to ask questions that might break me. But now, with the mansion behind me and Lila's couch under me, I felt a spark of something new. Curiosity, or maybe defiance. Not yet, I said. But I might. Lila grinned, like she'd known I had it in me. That's my girl. The next morning, I woke to the smell of bacon and the sound of Lila cursing at her ancient coffee maker. My body ached, my arm throbbing under the bandage, but I felt lighter. I'd slept on the couch, wrapped in a quilt that smelled like lavender, and for the first time in years I hadn't dreamed of Ava's laughter or Mom's dismissal. I dreamed of a road, open and endless, leading somewhere I couldn't see. Lila shoved a plate of bacon and eggs in front of me, her eyes narrowing at my bandage. "You gonna tell me about that?" she asked, pointing at my arm. "Long story," I said, poking at the eggs. "Bad night." She didn't push, just sat across from me, her coffee mug steaming. "You're not going back, right?" I shook my head. "No, I can't." "Then you're staying here," she said, like it was settled. "Rent's whatever you can swing. We'll figure it out." I nodded, my throat tight. Lila wasn't family, not by blood, but she was here, seeing me when no one else did. That was enough. After breakfast, I checked my phone. A voicemail from Karen. "Emily, we need you for overtime tonight. No excuses." My savings were at $47.00, and rent was due in a week. I couldn't say no, not yet. But as I showered in Lila's cramped bathroom, the water hot against my skin, I made a promise to myself. I'd fight for my place in the world, not as Ava's sister or the Harper's afterthought, but as Emily, just Emily. I stepped out, towel around me, and caught my reflection in the foggy mirror. My eyes were tired, my hair a wet mess, but there was something new in my face. A fire, small but stubborn, refusing to go out. I wasn't invisible anymore, not to myself, and that was a start. The rain had stopped by the time I left Lila's apartment, the sky a bruised gray that promised more storms. I carried my duffel bag, lighter now, and walked toward the community center, my shift looming like a weight I couldn't shake. But something had shifted inside me, a crack in the armor I'd built to survive the Harpers. I didn't know what came next, how I'd pay rent, dodge Karen's threats, or unravel the secrets Lila's rumor had stirred. I didn't know if the journal's question would lead to answers or just more pain. But I knew one thing. I was done waiting for permission to exist. The road ahead was mine, and I'd walk it, scars and all, until I found a place that felt like home.